Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Narrative. Today, I'm joined with my friend Tibby.
Hi.
Tibby is an incredible artist and designer. Would that be
Yeah,
right?
definitely. I think so.
She's responsible for the clothing brand Stomach of My Dead Soulmate, which you may know from pretty much every social media platform.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess my first question I wanted to ask you was, you're such an online person. We met online. What were your first online memories?
Um, I think they were probably like my older sisters playing video games, and also like we had like a family computer. Like I feel like that was the vibe. Um, and I remember like my sisters had like individual folders on our computer of stuff they wanted to post on MySpace. So I used to go through those, which is really funny. And then also like YouTube, like kind of like watching Michael Jackson videos on YouTube, I feel like was very formative back then. Cause like that was like the beginning of all of that like stuff.
Do you have any good old usernames you remember?
Not really. I feel like I used to just like do numbers and stuff like that because I've
Oh,
always been really
interesting.
paranoid. So like I don't know. I think that up until then, I would say like up until like the current one, which is like not even like very thought out of. Like I feel like I wish I was one of those people that had like really good usernames. I don't even think I have one right now.
Yeah, yours is so good because it's so evocative.
Yeah.
It comes from Saw, right?
Yeah, I was like my roommate at the time was in this film class, and he had to watch all these movies, and one of them was Saw. And so we were watching Saw, and that line came up, and it's in the first Saw movie. It's in the bear trap, um, and he says, "Look around, Amanda. No, I'm not lying. The key is in the stomach of your dead soulmate." And when I heard that, like back then, me and my roommate, I think, were really obsessed with like one liners like that. So we both were like immediately. And my account was just my Finsta. So I just like changed it to that. And then little did I know what would follow.
Yeah. When did you? Because I was trying to figure out when you started your brand, and I feel like I know it really popped off in 2020, but
Mm-hmm.
did you start it during lockdown, or was it something that you started before the pandemic?
I had started making clothes before the pandemic, but I because I feel like that's the thing is like I don't know when to distinguish like when it became a brand and like when it didn't because my brand name is like just kind of fell in my lap, and I feel like that's kind of been this whole process as everything has kind of just fallen into place. But I would say like I didn't start selling clothes until 2020, but that's because I was working a job, and like I didn't really have like the time or like the care to really like sell stuff. And then I was like, "Oh, I get like 2 weeks." And then, the whole thing.
Yeah, I think it almost caused this. The way I think of it is almost like a kind of a renaissance happened with, I would say, there's like a bunch of people that kind of came together online during that time that really
Mhm.
started, and I think you're one of the leaders of it, this new subculture of, I think your work speaks to a lot of different past subcultures, but mainly I would say like grunge and punk. I think
Mhm.
it is grunge and it is punk. It reminds me a lot of Vivienne Westwood's early work she was doing with the Sex Pistols. I think that time allowed so many artists to have the time as young people to not work and still make money and
Mhm.
launch these things and also connect with other people because we were all online all the time. And I think that's how we met. I mean, I forget
Do you
when.
remember the first time we met? Because I was thinking about it today on the way here. Do you remember?
It was at Bella
It
Ciao.
was at my birthday party.
It was at Bella Ciao, right? No.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was my birthday party last year. At my birth, I had a birthday thrown for me, and I was really drunk, and I remember Nick introducing us and like me not realizing like what was happening.
Yeah.
And also Nick told me to mention him on the pod, so he can't really complain. And I remember like I can like have the memory in my head of like seeing you there and everything, but like not really realizing what was going on. And then the next day, like Nick calling me and be like, "That was Tess. Like that was like the real." And I was like, "Oh my god, like why didn't you tell me?" And he was like, "I did tell you." And I was like, "Oh yeah, well you know it's my birthday and it's also like 2 a.m. at that point." Like I was just like.
No, I remember meeting you, and you're so nice, but in that moment, you were just kind of like, oh, yeah. Like, you were just, like, definitely drunk.
I was just like, yeah. And
you were just like, hi. And I was like, oh, okay, like, that's fine. Because I've met a lot of people from the internet before, and it's always a hit or miss whether or not you're going to vibe in person. So I was like, oh, maybe she's just, like, a quieter person or, like, not that interested. That's fine. But then you ended up being, like, super nice and cool, and we became friends. Yeah. So I was like, oh, cool, she does know who I am, because I didn't want to come off as like just like a random fan. What's that like, having people know you online and then meeting you in real life? Because that must be like a pretty normal thing that now happens.
Well, most people don't know what I look like, because I feel like I've kept it like purposely. I think there was like some point after, well, okay, I think that's something like really traumatic happened to me in 2021, that like I had already kind of had the building blocks of like I don't really want to post myself on the internet. And then when that all happened, that happened like pretty much like the beginning of 2021, and then kind of from there out there's not really much. Like, I kind of just, like, completely stopped posting, or at least, like, on Instagram. Like, I don't really, like, do that. And then, so people don't know what I look like. And it's kind of more like they have to use, like, a lot of context clues. And so that's, like, caused more funny things to happen. Like, people being really mean to me while wearing my clothes. And then, like, apologizing afterwards when they realize.
So they're wearing your clothes and they're being mean to you.
Yeah, because they don't know what I look like. But also I think that's funny.
Yeah, I've had that happen to me too, where I've been at a party and people have just straight up ignored me, but I've been in, like, we've been DMing, and I'm like, if you knew who I was online, you would be so happy. Yeah. But you're not taking the time to get to know me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny. I think, like, I don't know, but there I will say that there is still like a fair bit of, I feel like if people really do like really like me, they'll sometimes like go out of their way to kind of, there's definitely like ways. I'm not like so hidden and like I'm doing this and my face is here, you know, but it's just like it's not like as easily accessible as I think like most people are these days.
Yeah, I think that's to your advantage too, because I think being an anonymous girl is also in line with your work, because so much of it is about
being a
girl, but being any girl. And like when someone puts on your clothing, I'm gonna pull up some of your work. Find the right one. Oh, Romy, I forgot to give you the camera. Oh, I'll grab it. Do you want to grab it out of my bag? All right. So here I have some of Tibby's. Let me try to put this. Here I have some of Tibby's work. These are Twilight pieces.
Yeah, they are.
Which I think are some of, I remember really identifying with them because I love Twilight. But also I think what's so interesting about you using Twilight is that Bella is supposed to be any girl. Like any girl can make herself into being Bella. And when people put on your clothes, they can become like part of this subculture. They're able to enter into this world where they're both Bella and they're a meme almost of being a fan of Twilight. Yeah. Which I think is really cool. Is that something you think about, the mimetic nature of your clothing?
I think like yeah, I mean, to some extent, I think in the beginning, like I really like that, because I kind of like didn't really know and I didn't really care. And like, I feel like especially in the first like year or two, everything that I did was like, kind of like about the things that I liked. And it wasn't really like that stuff. Like a lot of the times, a lot of the stuff that I make, it would be like, oh, I'm like really obsessed with this for this month. And like, or it'd be about like some musician that I'm like, you know, really in love with. And I would make that stuff. And like, I've always kind of been fascinated with like bootleg culture because I feel like as time has gone on, like most brands and companies, like they're just trying to push merch a lot and they're like really not really giving a shit about like what the merch actually looks like, which sucks because I think a lot of things have like good IP and they could be really, really fucking sick, but it's often like pretty dull.
Yeah, it's interesting how, I mean, your work kind of is like, it's all about IP, but it's also about no IP at all.
I have no IP at all. No, yeah.
Like you have, I mean, what you have is what you figured out how to do, which is basically make clothing that looks mass manufactured at home. And I remember seeing your stuff at first and I was like, how the hell is she doing this? Because no one had figured out how to do what you were doing. Like you were really the first person to make this kind of stuff. And I think really sees these modes of production that are like the heat press, the Cricut, all of these kinds of DIY. They're industrial machines that have been made commercial for like crafters.
Yeah, they're like domestic. Like a lot of that stuff is like domestic, and I think there's like definitely a whole statement to make about that, about, you know, the factories coming into the home or something like that. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because as much as there is people into your work, there's also like a whole community of people online, especially on Reddit, that I noticed that are just trying to figure out how to do what you do.
Yeah, it was like definitely divisive, I think. And still I feel like I've just like I've shied away from explaining the process. I think like pretty much like a couple months into doing it, which I like gripe with myself about that because it's like it's not coming from some like weird gatekeeping thing. I think it's just like more of a general annoyance that when people see my stuff, their first thought is like, I can do something with this process and not really like about the clothes, which is like, maybe that's a statement amongst myself that like I need to make other clothes because like people shouldn't have that reaction or like whatever. And I definitely don't own it. I definitely wasn't. I think I'm the first person to set up this business model, but I definitely wasn't the first person to do this.
Yeah.
Or like print on clothes like this. Like there has been, like people have been printing on clothes for like thousands of years or whatever. And like, yeah, so there's that whole thing. That's like, I feel like that's always been like a like present within my work, is that you can like look in my comment sections and it will be like so many guys that with t-shirt brands like begging me to explain exactly how I did this, and like my DMs are like flooded like every day with people like begging me to teach them how to do it. And it's like, I think it's like less about the process and like more about experimentation, and that's like what I would encourage people to do, is like experiment and like do much better things than I'm doing, because it could literally be so much better. So
have you ever thought about doing like a Hustlers University, but like a Stomach of My Dead Soulmate University, where you like people can
like,
pay to
yeah,
like have
like
videos
I have like a
where
Patreon and like a whole like, yeah, pay $500 for this course. No, but sometimes when people are really, really insistent, so I feel like it depends on where they contact me at, but like sometimes people will find like my personal email address, or they'll like hit me up on Tumblr, and if they're really insistent, I always throw out some like crazy number.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I'm just like, do it. But even if they were like, yeah, I would be like, no, I actually don't, because it's like every single time I do stuff, like every different item is like done a different way, even if it's using the same process. And sometimes I forget how I did stuff.
Yeah.
And I have to like look back, but also I've gotten like pretty good that I have like in my notes app like this is how I did this and that. But like sometimes like there's some stuff where I'm like I genuinely like can't recreate this. Also a lot of stuff is like printed on vintage stuff, so it's like I can redo the design, but like this vibe is like to its own, and if you want it, like buy it from the people that are like reselling it for like triple the amount I sold it for on Depop.
Yeah, I noticed that too when I was researching for this. I'm like, Tibby has straight up her own resale economy, and it's just crazy because you don't really see that with brands until they get to a level where it's like Yeezy has a great resale economy, but your stuff like aftermarket still sells for sometimes double what you sold it originally for, which is wild. And I wanted to read this Andy Warhol quote because I feel like it so pertains to your work, but being good in business is the most fascinating kind of art. Making money is art, and working is art, and good business is the best art. And I feel like what you were able to, you're just such a smart business person. Do you have any, I don't want to say tips, but I do want to say tips for like young girl bosses or whatever. This is sounding so embarrassing. But
I mean, I was only able to do this. Well, I guess we didn't really touch on this when you asked me about the pandemic because it kind of slipped my mind. But the only way I was able to do any of this was because I took all of the pandemic money, like all the what were those called?
Stimmy checks.
The stimulus checks. I took all the stimulus checks and I did not spend any of it on myself. I just bought a bunch of equipment and just like took a really big risk. So I would say investing in yourself would probably be and also putting yourself out there, because like I think especially in the city that I was in and like around the people that I was around, it was really cringe to even post your face, let alone like literally anything besides like a crack in the ground. And so that was really hard, but it did turn out really well because other people like saw it and they fucked with it and they reposted it, and then, you know, the whole thing goes down, you know. But also I would encourage like everyone to like not, I think art can be a business, but it's such a brutal one that I would highly suggest you just get a degree and go down a traditional route, because I don't know, get into tech or something. That's my advice, honestly.
You didn't go to school, right?
No, I never went to college.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people, I think especially because of the pandemic, a lot of young people have made different decisions. We're kind of in like this time where we have the internet, but not much else in terms of like educational resources for a lot of people. And that's what I really like about what you've done, is really like mobilize the internet. Like your work is a subculture, because if you Google Stomach of Your Dead Soulmate, you're not going to find like anything on the Google homepage. But then if you go to Pinterest, Tumblr, TikTok, Instagram, and you search your username, there's like a whole community of people that have bought your clothing and then post about it. And I find that so fascinating. And I wanted to pull up some designs that I feel like, I think this one especially, I've seen around a lot.
Oh yeah, the boy.
The boy. Who is the boy? Where did you find this boy?
Well, I think I got really into medical journals because I think that a little while into doing it, I did get afraid about like, you know, the dreaded cease and desist. So I was kind of like, let me try to find some stuff that if everything goes out, like at least I can still like put this out. And he was in a medical journal for I don't remember what it was, but it was some sort of like electrode thing. And I picked him because if you show that photo again, the boy who's wearing it, his older brother, who is a good friend of mine, and at that point in time when I was making it, was a really big part of both of our lives. He looks identical to the boy in that photo.
So you actually kind of know this person?
No, he's not him.
Oh, he just looks like the guy.
He just looks just like him, and therefore I called it Goyle because Max, the guy who looks like him, that's his DJ name, and so I thought it was really funny, and I feel like he's the closest thing I have to a logo is probably him.
Yeah, I think he's so interesting because it's so like brutal but relatable, because this is kind of like how everyone feels when they've been on their phone 10 hours a day. Your brain is literally like buzzing and you have all these like probes stuck to you. And I think a lot of the like meme imagery that's come out of your clothing, like that there's like a video, I can like put it in here, of a guy in an airplane wearing one of your beanies, and he's wearing this one. And I think it's very evocative and powerful. I'm going to show some more stuff. Are these also medical journal ones?
No, so the Eternity one comes from like I'm pretty sure like a religious GeoCity website. I might be wrong about that. And then the other one is just like a tracking like informational graphic. I don't even know if it's necessarily a real one. I always thought it came from more like, remember like early 2000 like spy movies when they would like show like sequences that kind of look like that, when they're just like, oh yeah, they have like a Dell computer that can just randomly scan through everything. That's kind of what that reminded me of.
Cool.
But yeah, I feel like back then I was really into the medical stuff and kind of like tech and everything, like technological horror.
Yeah, I think horror is such a, I think when I think of your work, I think about like horror, sex, memes.
Yeah.
Those three things. And then that's why I wanted to talk about this one. I think these ones are so iconic because they literally turn you into a meme because it's text that you put on your body.
Yeah.
But they're also like, a lot of your work is really connected to religion in a lot of ways. So what is your connection to spirituality like?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question to ask. I was raised Orthodox, Greek Orthodox. I would still identify with that. I don't think that's really changed much. I think that there was like definitely a point in like when I was, hitting my teenage years where I really, really rejected that. But following some stuff that happened to me like right after turning 18, I was like, oh shit, no, actually, like I am deeply religious, to the point where I think it shocks my father now. And regarding spirituality, I think that's a more complicated answer for me. I think that I am like probably too deep into astrology and a lot of other things, and I think that, yeah, I think maybe the other things I keep to myself, just because I think that's probably how you should approach those things. But I would say, like, on the surface level, I'm very deep into astrology, so
Yeah, no, I really respect that about you. I think that your work, you can see it in the work, because I think a lot of the times when people make art, there is art, I think all great art has a relationship to a higher power. And I mean, God, you can call that higher power, God, you can call it whatever you want. But I think, in my opinion, most, especially pop artists, I think a lot of the time what's so good about their work is that they're able to bring that relationship that they have to God to their work in a way where the viewer can kind of feel that reverence in some way. And I think with your clothing, both the person wearing it and the clothing itself is a god in a way. Because, like, for example, like the Jennifer's Body stuff, I feel like that she's like a demon.
Yeah.
And a godlike figure. She can bring and destroy life. And I just think it's really interesting how I think in like such a, I would say right now, like culturally as a whole, there's kind of like a religious void. How like your clothing, for example, can kind of fill that void for some people. It almost becomes like clothing and fashion and identity has become a way people can show who they are the way they used to with religion. And I think that's really what fascinates me about your work in a lot of ways, is that relationship viewers have to it. And going off of that, who are some of your artistic inspirations? Like, is there any artists you think about when you're making clothes?
I mean, just because of like prints being like a huge thing, obviously Gautier, like always, like if I'm, you know, and I used to wear him a lot. I like kind of, as of the past year, I like sold all my designer clothes and like kind of just wear all black now, which is so stereotypical. And so I think in that terms, like, yeah, I mean, otherwise it's just like other people that are in my immediate peers, which I would say is like probably everyone at Lucky Jewel. And then other than that, I try to watch movies like all the time, and I try to go to museums like all the time, because I think that there's like a lot of stuff you can take from fashion, but most good fashion comes from something that's not related to fashion at all. So
totally agreed.
That's like where I think I come from.
Yeah, I want to show one more image. I feel like the eye ones are interesting too, because of like the viewer relationship. Why gloves? Like, what made you decide gloves? Because I feel like that's a pretty unconventional choice for an apparel line.
Well, I think that a lot of the stuff that I did end up choosing in the beginning are kind of like what not that I stuck with, because I've definitely branched out from other stuff, but like that's what people want now. So I do still continue to offer it, but it all stems from the fact that like back when I started, like me and my roommate would just go around town and try to find stuff that I could do stuff with, and like it just so happened one day there was like a bunch of like white hats and white gloves, and like that's literally like what happened. And yeah, it just kind of all sprung from there, and I was able to continue to get that, and I still can. And you know, and I think a lot of my stuff always comes from the people that I'm around. And looking at those two pieces, I know exactly the two people, or maybe it might have just been one person, but like I would say looking back, like maybe 2 or 3 people that I made because I was like, oh, I think that would impress them or something like that. And I feel like that's where a lot of my work comes from. And even now still, I would say like the other stuff that I do, because I still do like sell that stuff and everything, but I feel like my work has become a lot more black and white.
Yeah, I feel like that's such a good point you made about trying to impress. Like when I feel like most of the best stuff I've made, I'm thinking about someone else because I think it allows you to kind of step outside of yourself and also trust yourself in a way that you don't normally. Because I think as an artist, what's so hard is you're in your head all the time, and at least someone outside of it is like, you're kind of thinking in a different way. So I'm gonna ask this question, then we're gonna get into more like fun random questions. But okay, I have to ask about your 1D face. We have to talk about One Direction.
Okay, all right, we can go there. Yeah, let's go there. Let's put this on my digital footprint. Let's do it. So I've been like trying to. Okay, yeah. I mean, I already did, but I like removed my. Okay. Anyway, yeah. Where do you want to start? Do you want me to just start from what you take the lead here?
So One Direction. What does One Direction mean to you?
Just such a large chunk of my preteen and early teen life. I feel like that's probably, I was talking about this with my friend Sarah because she randomly turned to me one night when we were at a bar and she was like, did you have a One Direction phase? And I was like, yeah, Sarah. And she was like, where were you at? Because I feel like with One Direction fans, it's all about what, if you were like really hardcore, it's like what app you were on. Were you a Twitter One Direction fan? Were you on Instagram? Were you like on Tumblr? And like I was on Tumblr, and like that was such a formative experience for both getting to know fandoms and also the algorithm. Like it immediately, like I got to know like how the algorithm works pretty quickly without even like really realizing it like myself. I was just like, oh, this gets me like a lot of like notes, and that's all I cared about back then. And like I mean, I cared about other stuff like the band obviously and like talking to other people on there, but like when it came to like I want to get notes on Tumblr, like I got to know the algorithm really well through that. And then yeah, I don't know, I just like I think there is like this very natural void that exists with all like preteen girls where you're looking for something safe, usually a romantic interest, and like what's better than like 5 boys that are like 3,000 miles away that you can just like pretend that they're your boyfriends. And their company and record label like gave us all like massive amounts of content back then, like, and we consumed it all. And
yeah, no, it's really interesting because I was a Jonas Brothers fan, but this was like pre-social media, so I don't think I really got to fully, I'm like a little bit older than you, so I missed like when they were able to fully digitalize the boy band's presence, because I had some friends that were really into Justin Bieber, and I was just like, oh, that's like like by that time I was 15, so I was like, whatever, like this is kid stuff. But I wanted to pull up, because we're talking about One Direction, I want to also talk about Drain Gang.
oh god. Yeah.
Because I feel like there's kind of like, me and Romy were talking about this.
Yeah.
There's like a pipeline between 1D to Drain Gang.
No, there definitely is. And I mean, there's lyrics about it. Drain Gang is a new One Direction. I think that's what Blade said. I was really, really, really big. I mean, I don't want to say I was like, I still, obviously I love them. I think they're great. I think they're amazing. I think they're geniuses. I was also just talking about this yesterday with somebody, because we're both like former reformed drainers. Yeah, it blew my mind. Couple years ago, like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I was in LA for 420. And I went with these 2 girls and my friend Alessandra. On 420, all she played was Maddox and Blade, and I was converted like almost instantly.
I see Romy smiling. She's a drainer too.
Yeah. We have the secret third drainer in the corner. And yeah, so when I made that was, I would say honestly, there's 2 that I would say like really launched it all, because I feel like I was already pre-launched through other clothes that I made that I basically have kind of removed all the images from the internet, but those were definitely like the ones that launched it. But the ones that really launched like the printed stuff is definitely the Blade shirt and the Nicki Minaj shirt.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, I've met the girl now, like through DMs, who's in that
really?
photo. Yeah, she contacted me, and she told me the whole story, which is like kind of a sad story. um about like that photo getting like taken from her dad's Facebook account because I hope I'm getting the story right. I'm sorry if I'm not, but like from my memory, uh they took it from her dad's Facebook account, and because her dad had like geo tracking, and they were, I think at that point in time there was like, it was really hard to get photos of Blade, and so they took it, and this guy made the I hate women, he put it on there, and it became like a meme. And he also, like, I think he really hates me for selling it, but
His loss. I mean, he
she
should have done
doesn't.
it.
So I think that's funny. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's always the people that don't think of the idea and then someone else steps in and
Yeah, and I mean, I never made it from that intention,
yeah.
but I literally just made it for like me and like one of my ex's roommates. Like and then it kind of like that became the thing that everyone like was really really like, I really want that, and that photo of me wearing it went viral. So
Yeah. I think it's interesting because it's like you're anonymous, but there's parts of you that are viral, like your back tattoo, which
yeah.
people have copied, which is
Mhm.
really crazy.
Yeah.
That someone like, which I mean, it makes sense. I saw one of my posts, someone turned it into a tattoo once. It's like a Hamtaro picture. I was like, okay, that's cool. But I think it's interesting to be like very hidden, but then have parts of you be super public. What's
Yeah.
that like to experience? Like,
Well, I think my like I'm obviously very heavily tattooed. And like I'm always down for them. Like they want the healed pics. Like they just want the healed pics. Like they're booking now and they want healed pics. And so, and obviously like the person who did my back is Jenny, who I love, and I consider her a really close friend. And so, and obviously I was giving her such a huge part of my body. Like it's like literally from like my butt to my back. And so it just like, I don't know. And also when you get like a really big piece like that, you're going to be like a little bit obnoxious like about it, especially at first. I feel like I really don't show it off at all anymore. But at first it was just like, that was the vibe. And honestly, for that particular photo, I was literally at my ex-boyfriend's, like on the back of his porch, and his roommate asked to take a photo to post on her story. And the screenshot of her story is what went viral. I hadn't even posted that shirt or anything yet. And I like remember going to bed and then waking up the next day with like 30 DMs and like people sending me like it screenshotted on Tumblr. And
it's wild.
it was just like a whole thing. But I think people were kind of starving for it, and Blade had kind of just like switched into like, I would say, what he's kind of more doing now. And like, you know, it was like that vibe.
Yeah. I feel like your work is it's so interesting because it takes on its own life outside of you so quickly. It's almost like you kind of do one thing and then it just like the internet just like grabs it.
If
like,
you post anything, it's not yours. Like
Yeah.
anything you post on the internet, it immediately doesn't become yours. And I think for a really long time it was after all of this like started happening, I became like really guarded and jaded and kind of like stopped putting out new stuff because I was just like, I kind of want to just like enjoy this for myself. And I feel like I'm finally like coming out of that, where I'm more willing to share some of the other stuff that I've been working on. Also, because it's like hard. I think back then, when the first like year or two, like really colorful prints and like stuff like that kind of interested me more. And like now that's like not what is interesting me. So
what are you working on right now that's like exciting for you?
I'm working on these hoodies that I'm really excited about, and they just feature text. And but I'm just like, I don't know, it's just like figuring out how to arrange it. It's also going to be like the first thing that I do that I don't manufacture. So that will be really interesting. I'm kind of moving away from doing it myself, I guess.
It's a lot of work. You've made like thousands of pieces of clothing.
Yeah.
Like you're not only a designer, but you're the factory, the marketing team, the creative. Like that's
logistics,
yeah. Shipping and handling.
Yeah.
Like I've watched you in your studio before, and like someone comes in to pull some pieces, you're like at the heat press banging shit out. Like like there's like 5 things happening at once, and that's what I think is so impressive. And it's like can't really replicate. There's no like roadmap to what you're doing. It's a totally new thing that's only possible because of all of this technology that we have access to.
Yeah. And
I really respect it. I'm going to ask you some YouTube Q&A questions.
Okay.
The first question is, what's the last movie you cried to?
My Sister's Keeper, which was a couple days ago, because one, that's like kind of my movie that I will cry to, like without a doubt. And because I feel like Cameron Diaz's performance in that movie is like so, I feel like I relate to how she acts in that movie. And this is crazy to say because she's like playing the mother of a girl who has cancer, but like the way she's like really like can be really controlling in that is sometimes I feel like I can get like that when I'm like in a dark place. So I cried to that movie, and I think that movie is really good. And also I didn't know we were talking about this.
Yeah.
John Cassavetes, like that's his son, made that movie and made
so crazy
The Notebook too, which is like really, and also a bunch of other like really crazy movies that you wouldn't, I don't know, whatever.
Watch it.
Yeah.
How many shoes do you have?
Not that many anymore, but I used to have a lot. I used to have a lot of shoes. I'm wearing Asics right now. I'm wearing black Asics right now, and the only other ones that I still kept my Pradas because like I'm still a drainer, I guess. And what are the other ones that I have besides that? I have like Jordans from high school.
That's cool. What is your biggest fear?
Probably dying in an airplane and my dad dying. Those are probably the two that keep me up at night.
Yeah. I mean, understandable. Let's play Fuck, Marry, Kill.
Oh, God. Okay. I was also just playing this the other day.
All right. This is kind of like influencer celebrity edition.
Thank God it's not people we know, because that's what I was doing. That's what I was doing the other day.
I wouldn't do that. It's too early in the podcast. It's only second episode. Can't get anyone mad at me. So Addison Rae, Nessa Barrett, Tana Mojo.
Okay, I'm gonna have to kill Nessa Barrett just because I feel like she's too young for me. Like it's like I wouldn't be comfortable with that. I'd have to marry Addison Rae because I can't see myself marrying Tana Mojo. Like maybe that would be cool, but like also I feel like she would dog walk me. Like
I feel like Tana could destroy you.
Yeah, she would totally destroy me.
You're too much of a water sign.
Yeah, it would be terrible.
All right, next question. Harry Styles, Trisha Paytas, Iggy Azalea.
Oh, God. Okay, but this is my relationship now with 1D afterwards. It's like I don't know. Harry kind of freaks me out now.
Fair.
But it's so hard. Okay, I don't know. I just like I wouldn't want to fuck Trisha just because of the fact that I feel like she would be so sad because she's so in love now.
Yeah.
But if it was just like perfect world, but even her pre that was like she was in such a dark place. Like I think I would have to kill her. Fuck Iggy Azalea, I guess. Which honestly that might not be that bad. Like I feel bad for her. She's in like a kind of a shitty situation right now. And then I would still marry Harry even though he freaks me out. Like, there would be no other option.
All right, I'm gonna do like a little question. Lil Pump, Lil B, Lil Peep.
I'm marrying Little Peep every single time. I'd fuck Little B. He's kind of a freak, but yeah, okay, yeah. And then sorry, Pump.
It's okay. I don't think it's fine. I don't know why I'm speaking on Pump's behalf.
Yeah, literally the representative.
I do love Lil Pump, but all right. And then because we've watched some boxing matches together,
Yeah.
I had some influencer boxing matchups I was wondering your thoughts on.
I would love to be a curator.
Who would win between Ethan Klein and Shane Dawson in a fight? In a boxing?
Ethan.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like Shane Dawson would like curl up and like start crying or
He's
something.
a Cancer, too.
Yeah. I feel like no. And I could see Ethan like really being like, okay. Like he's got kids and shit. Like he can't get his ass beat by Shane Dawson. Like it's like not wouldn't work.
All right. Tana Mojo versus Nikita Dragon.
Okay, that's a hard one. I feel like that one would be a draw. I feel like that one would end up like in the referees like having to like pull them off of each other. Yeah. Like vibe. I don't know. That's a hard one. That would be a really good matchup.
It'd be fun to watch.
Yeah.
I think if Tana had a good trainer, she could win, but I do feel like Nikita
can fight.
I feel like Nikita already can fight. I don't know. I think Tana can fight in a certain way, but all right. Whoa, Vicky versus Bad Baby.
Oh, Bad Baby. She would win. A heartbeat. Like, and also, Whoa, Vicky's reformed now, so.
Yeah, I know. She's a good girl. Jeffree Star versus James Charles.
Jeffree, of course. It doesn't even matter that Jeffree is like skinny as fuck. Like, no, he'd body him 100%. Like, Jeffree can fight. Like, those old videos of him just like on the strip in LA, like, no, he can definitely fight. Like,
yeah, I think I could probably fight James Charles and win.
Yeah, there's nothing about him that screams self-defense.
I feel like a lot of your clothing, some of your more popular ones, have a lot to do with like not having sex and like.
Yeah, I would say probably the most popular. I was wondering if you were gonna bring up that one.
Yeah,
on the little cards, but
I printed it out and I didn't bring it with me.
It's okay.
But I wanted to talk about it because I feel like I don't quite understand femcel culture, because I think when I was growing up, it was like this hypersexual culture, like almost to be popular or to get attention in general, you had to have sex and be very public about it. It was like the MTV era.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
Shot of Love, that kind of stuff. But now I feel like a lot of people that follow me and I think follow you wear that clothing, and I think it's kind of, I don't know, it seems like it runs deep.
So I think it's interesting because when I made that, I feel like it was funnily enough the first time that I had kind of come out of that. Like I came out of being, I have a gripe with the term femcel, because back when I was really deep into that, I would always get mad when people would call me that. And I'd be like, no, I'm just an incel, but I don't want to claim that because like there's other connotations to that I definitely do not apply to me. But just in like the vague sense of like not having sex, that's like kind of what I identified with. And back then, like this was like 2016 to like 2018, like all the people that were kind of doing that, like it was not as glamorous of a look as it is right now. At all. Like and I even knew couples that were like doing that, like and I think it just came from like, I don't know, like I don't really know where it came from, TBH. I think it was just like heartbreak, control, you know, the classic tragedies. And now to see how much it has like evolved, and that's like I think that's probably the piece that shocks me the most, because that's the one that I did not think that it was gonna do that. Like I don't know. Like it was just a dress. It was a dress with the boy on the front, It was the full front of the dress was just like tiles of him, and on the back of it, it was just "I will never have sex" printed over and over again. And it comes from a screenshot a friend took of, I don't even know what. I'm pretty sure she screenshotted an article because those words like matched up on the lines but actually did not ever interact with each other in a sentence. And I was like, can I take that? And she was like, yeah. And
Yeah. No,
just randomly, but yeah, it definitely echoes though in my work. I think a lot of my work still deals with like those themes of sex and emotion and stuff like that. And I mean, I'm happy to support the femcells of right now, you know.
Yeah, I feel like I'd rather call them. I don't love the term femcel either. I feel like it's kind of like this like less hardcore version of like incel, but I think they're just as hardcore, maybe in a different direction.
Yeah,
and
probably
I think
more the roots of that versus like killing people.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are just looking for. I don't want to speak for them, but I think it's kind of this. I think intimacy, especially after the pandemic. Imagine like growing up during your formative years when you would be experimenting, not having that access, and then going into the world and like what like sex is now on the table. That's fucking terrifying. That's
Yeah,
like
I
what I
couldn't
can imagine. And
imagine.
like I'd be fucking scary as hell. Like I don't know. And I think the online community, I think our worlds online are very much. I try to make my platform at least like a safe place for people to just vibe out and like enjoy things. And I think that I think with so much going on and so much of like, I think both of our work is kind of aggressive. Like, I think that like your work is like so related to horror in so many aspects, but there's also something comforting about it, which I find interesting. Like, I think that like abrasiveness is now comfort to a lot of young people. And I wonder.
I think people want honesty, and sometimes abrasiveness and honesty can be really like they can be sisters sometimes. But yeah, like I don't know, I think I also agree with like, yeah, I don't really like the term femcel. Like I don't know, there's just something about it that just kind of rubs me wrong. I don't like the differentiating. I don't feel like we always need to differentiate just because we're femme.
Yeah, no, I agree. So we were talking the other week about you starting streaming. Is that still on the table?
Oh my god. You know, I think I'm just like going through a phase right now. I'm like going through like a, you know, it's like a couple of months post breakup. Like I don't know. Now I want to become a streamer. I don't know. It's like that's what I want to do that week, and like now I'm watching Below the Deck, and I'm like I should quit fashion and become like a yachty. You know, and
vlog it.
They wouldn't let me vlog it, I think, on a yacht. Like I see some girls on TikTok that are yachties, and they're like, I had to get the permission of like the yacht owners and the captain and all these, you know, and like the head steward, and like, so I don't even know if I could do that. But yeah, I think there's always like this aspect of escapism that kind of never leaves my mind. So just got to deal with it, you know. I would like to start streaming though, but I would only want to do that because I'm currently in love with a streamer, and I won't even say who because it would be so embarrassing. But like, you know, in my head,
you're telling me after this. Yeah, I think. Let me look at time. I think we're like. Okay. I feel like.
How do you feel?
I feel good. How do you feel?
I feel good.
I feel good too. Let's all right, let's wrap this up. All right. Any final thoughts? Do you want to tell people? What do you want to tell the people? Do you have a last word or a last thing you want to put out into the universe?
Trying to think. I mean, buy some of my clothes.
Yeah, buy Tibby's clothes. I'm going to link her website down below. Follow her. Buy her shit. Follow what she's doing. And this has been another episode of Narrative. I'll see you guys next one. Don't forget to subscribe, Stay real, stay gorgeous, stay blessed. Love you. Woo!